Many travel books have been written about the Holy Land, but none compares to Mark Twain's The Innocents Abroad. Long before the famous American author shook the world of literature with masterpieces such as The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, he was sent on a 5-month voyage to the Holy Land as a correspondent of the daily Alta California newspaper.
This became the most famous and most read travelogue in the world till today. That's what brought him his claim to fame. 2 years after he visited here in September of 1867, Mark Twain collated all the letters that he used to send to Alta California newspaper and put them into a book called The Innocents Abroad, and this is what made him rich and made him famous. And he became such a cynical writer, such a humorist, that he's considered to be the #1 writer in American literature.
Although Jerusalem is mentioned only in the 53rd episode, we decided to start our journey here. One place which is not mentioned in the book itself is this site called the Zedakaya Cave.
This is where in 1867, when Mark Twain came as the first tourist on the grand tour to the Holy Land of Jerusalem, he came to Jerusalem. At that same year, Charles Warren, from the Palestine Exploration Fund in England, that was established 2 years earlier by Queen Victoria, was living in Jerusalem and digging up Jerusalem. And he also dug up this cave and realized that this is a quarry going back to the days of King Solomon, that's considered by the Freemasons as the first Freemason. So this is where, in this huge space that we are under Jerusalem, he in 1867 created the first gathering of the Freemasons of the Holy Land and created the first lodge. There was a secret meeting right inside the cave in what we call today the Freemasons Hall, and this is where it was established.
The lodge where Mark Twain stayed in Jerusalem is not far from here, in the Muslim Quarter. In 2007, Yoni Shapira, tour guide and a scholar who researched the issue, managed to locate the exact building, which later became a residence of former Prime Minister Ariel Sharon.
The hotel, I was asked to find the hotel following a letter in which Mark Twain wrote to the bookbinder that was working here and selling his produce together with mother of pearl, beads, dried flowers, the shoeshine guy, all in the courtyard. And this book basically says, Mr. Isias, please make me a small Bible and write on it to Mrs. Jane Clemens, his mother, September 24th, 1867, from her son, and write somewhere on it in Hebrew, Yerushalem, Jerusalem. That book was found in the Bancroft Archives in Berkeley, California. The letter on one hand, the book on the other, basically put us together with this location of the Mediterranean Hotel. We found out that this is the hotel through one picture taken by the photographer of Charles Warren, Henry Phillips, that took a picture of women grinding wheat in the courtyard of the hotel. And that courtyard, when I came up through the stairs leading up, through the description that I found in Underground Jerusalem, written by Charles Warren, there it is, the picture, the stairs, the door, the window, exactly as it is from 1867.
The Jerusalem of Mark Twain is a dense, neglected city. The appearance of the city is peculiar, he writes in his book. It is a knobby with countless little domes as a prison door is. Walking on the northern part of Jerusalem wall, it seems that not much has changed in the old city of Jerusalem, at least not in its appearance.
When he stood on the rooftops like we are now, he looked at the city layout and basically said that this is the knobbiest city in the world. It looks like a jail door with all the knobs. And the narrow streets are so narrow that it looks like one mass, and even cats can go through the entire city without stepping at the ground level, literally jumping from roof to roof to roof to roof.
But perhaps the most famous site mentioned in Twain's book is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where, according to the Christian tradition, Jesus is buried. Twain was very sharp and cynical when he described the gap between the history of the site and the way it looked then. In a series of funny and sarcastic descriptions, he mentions how the pilgrims behave inside the sacred site.
He names the book not only The Innocents Abroad, but American Vandals Abroad. And the American Vandals were because everywhere they went, they chiseled off a piece of relic. And as we go into the church, there is the stone of unction, where according to the tradition, Jesus' body was washed and put in the shroud before taken to be buried. That stone there is not the original. Underneath it, there is a Byzantine stone, and underneath it, probably the bedrock. However, the Byzantine stone was chiseled away, nothing left for it. So the Crusaders covered it with a stone, and today people worship something else, not the original stone that was here. So the American Vandals Abroad, going with the chisel, taking relics from different places, is something that he was very much against. One of the humorous stories is the story of the sword of Godfrey of Bouillon. It was till a few years ago in the Franciscan section, and it's now on loan to France. When Mark Twain was here, they showed him the sword. They gave him the sword to play around with. And he said, this is a miraculous sword. When it hears the sound of a Muslim arriving, it chops him off. However, if it hears the sound of a crusader coming, it will not attack, even if the crusader is dressed as a Muslim. And suddenly the sword jumped out of the hand and smashed at somebody and killed him. And Mark Twain describes it, he cleaned off the blood, handed it over to the priest and says, now I believe that this miraculous sword is true.
Twain finishes the chapter about the Church of the Holy Sepulchre with these words: history is full of this old Church of the Holy Sepulchre, full of blood that was shed because of the respect and the veneration in which men held the last resting place of the meek and lonely, the mild and gentle, Prince of Peace. This tension between faith and reality, rituals and daily life, and the obscure scenes that they produced are the core of The Innocents Abroad, travel book which cleverly describes the Holy Land of the late 19th century, and some may say, of our era as well.